There you go. Welcome to EnJewel's launching of our podcast, Uncut. It's January 13, 2023. I'm so excited. Unbelievable that we actually are launching. With us, we have our guest, Liza Gino from California. Welcome, Liza.
Hi.
Hi,
Hello,
Lisa.
everyone.
Welcome.
And with us, of course, we have our board members, Raquel Sangalang and NJ Villanueva, helping us to produce our first uncut production of our podcast. Thank you guys for coming and joining us.
Of course.
So, Liza, it's so good to talk to you. And again, you're from California. How are things going over there? How's the weather?
Oh God, it's wet.
Wet.
It's so wet. It's so wet.
It is the same here. Note this podcast is uncut. It is real. And again, I'm not going to edit this by any means. And it's going to be exactly how we're thinking, how we're feeling. And that's why I wanted to have as a podcast is to have a voice for the voiceless and an opportunity to actually showcase different people that are in this space of human trafficking. So thank you for agreeing to being our first guest. It is January. It is Human Traffic Awareness Month. It is Wear Blue. And I just want to share this unbelievable stuff. Can you see this?
Awesome. It's so beautiful.
Oh, that's beautiful.
One of a kind. And of course, I want to thank our friends from the Philippines, Lena Group. And they are just wonderful to help us to promote and to advocate and to provide awareness about the fight against human trafficking. So we're actually going to be doing a fashion show later on this year, promoting and showcasing the Lena products. So if you're excited about what I'm wearing, you'll be excited about seeing what they're going to be unveiling in July.
Oh, awesome. Is it possible to buy one of those?
Well, actually, I don't know if she's going to, I don't know what she's going to do, but she is unveiling slowly pieces of knitwear that is specifically made in the Philippines. And she loved the logo, and she actually is cutting and doing different things with different fabrics, the piña, of course, as we all know, and just Philippine made items. So she's going to do a little bit of combining different fabrics from the Philippines. So, but she wants to unveil that. So when we have an opportunity, we'll probably podcast her later on this year as well, before the actual fashion show. But
that's beautiful.
Did you receive your cup?
Oh, I'm drinking my coffee right now with it.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
And
this is awesome.
Thank you. And every guest that actually showcases on our podcast gets one of these. So again, thank you.
I'm so honored and grateful.
Well, without further ado, I'm so excited. Our book club here actually used your book as their book last January during Human Traffic Awareness Month. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about your book as well and promote your book, Imelda's Secret. What a great book. Tell us a little bit about the background of the book. What made you think about writing this? How long was it? Just a little background.
Well, it took me 15 years to write this.
15?
And
15.
Well, when I started this, it was supposed to memorialize the experiences of my family and friends of World War II, like the stories, how it is in a close family unit where they're always talking, always talking about something. And so my grandmother would tell me how she was so young and she was so fair and they were afraid for her. So they made her chop off her hair, and then because she's mestiza, so she's very fair. So they made her roll around in the mud and have mud all the way up to her scalp, just to protect her from, hide her from the soldiers. And so I started writing this story based on their experiences and like what my father told me about babies and all that. So during my research, because you have to make sure that you have capture as much as you could. During my research, I came across the Comfort Women and, eventually got to talk to some of them. And I said, to make this more impactful I need to actually write a storyline that could really push the envelope. And that's why when I wrote it, I wrote it as pre-war, war, and then 40 years into the late 1980s, because I want people, what I really want to do is start people to think about it, then eventually talk about it. Because in the late 80s, that's when they were finally, the women were finally felt safe enough to talk about it. And by one opening up, the other one opening up, and before you know it, they were advocating for each other. That's why factually in 1991, the first Korean comfort woman came out. And then in 1992, our own Nana Rosa from the Philippines came out as the first Filipina comfort woman. But they're still here, albeit they're very, very old. I think the oldest is like 103 already.
Oh, wow.
So they're getting there, but we need to acknowledge what happened to them. And to do that, we need to start the conversation. And these are the women that I've worked with. I'm working with. They came out, but imagine the tens of thousands or the hundreds of thousands that never came out because they saw what happened to those women who did. So it's all about keeping secrets, and secrets lead to shame and just closes up the person. And we really have to move away from that. And these women were captured and forced, and eventually made it through the what you call this, the Japanese system, and they were trafficking the women to service their soldiers. So we need to do something about that, because it's still happening now, happening to women in Ukraine. And that's why when you talk to me about human trafficking, sign me up. I want to know more, and I want to know how I could prevent this.
Well, Liza, you also, in this book, the goal is to tell the story, to give awareness. But what is your end goal? What was the goal in writing this book?
Well, my end goal is that, things happen to women. And for some women, it's a death sentence. Like, that's it.
Right.
I mean, it's end. But it's not the end of you. If you had to go through something like this, if you've ever gone through this, this is not the end of you. And you have every right to be there. Your past doesn't make you. You have every day, every next day, today, tomorrow, next month, next year, you have the opportunity to make a difference. You can change your life. It's really up to you, because no one can force change on you. Yes, this happened to you. This was forced upon you. But you can make the choice of either be the victim or be the person that went beyond it. And I'm not talking about just survivor, but literally changing and making a difference. Don't let this happen to somebody else. Give someone the safe space so that they can talk about them. Have compassion for all those who have been or have not been. You just need to look at all this victims, the survivors rather, with compassion, because everyone needs compassion.
Tell us a little bit
That's
about the
right.
apology, or the apology that has not yet been done.
Oh, the apology. Well, there are several factions that are working on the apology, because the Japanese are not apologizing for this. They're claiming that the women were paid, that they hired prostitutes to service their men. But I went to the General MacArthur Memorial, and I found
In
the
Norfolk.
document. Yes, in Norfolk. And I found a document that specifically states that they paid the entertainment house manager, the geisha, but there was nothing there about women being paid. So by that document alone, they lied.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yes,
Mhm.
and as a matter of fact, it was great to have you here in our community and to meet with different women and to talk about your book. And I'll never forget, of course, we're at the library. Tell us about that event, and what it did was, one, to give awareness about comfort women, but what came about from that event was so unbelievable. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was something else, because I read So if you ever lay your hands on this book, I know this book is available in some major libraries, like in San Francisco, I think they have 4 copies. Some other places they have copies where they have this. Go pick it up. If not, go buy a copy. If you want a signed one, call me or email me or text
Yeah,
me, and
yeah.
I'll get you one. But so there's a section in this book starting from page 124, which I read at the library about
Can we
the
read that page
experience.
24? Can you read that section again? 124. I know. When you read that, it was unbelievable.
Um,
Authors always have something when they write a book, they have an intention. And of course, I always ask an author if there's anything in this book that you thought was like major impact to you, your heart, what would that be? And I know you said page 124. So if you'll read that section.
okay. So here, so Adele picked up a paper and pen on her desk before. Wait, I really need to put on my glasses because I'm not that.
I know, see, I did the same thing already. Because I'm gonna read you my favorite part of my book of the book.
I'm not that. My eyes are not that great. I fake it, but I can't fake this one. Okay, so here we go. So Adele picked up a pad of paper and pen on her desk before walking toward the sofa. She took a seat next to Eusebia and put the pad and pen on the coffee table. I am so glad to see you, Auntie, and thank you so much for agreeing to share your story. I understand it can be very difficult, but know it is to help a lot of women, Adele said, holding Eusebia's hands again. My being brave and sharing my story is all I have to offer for all the women. I have suffered like a dog, and no one should ever be at that level, Eusebia calmly said. Do you mind if I record this session, Auntie? No, I don't mind, Adele. Go ahead. If I want everyone to know and never forget what happened during the Japanese occupation. Tina walked in with a small teapot, cups, and saucers, and a small plate of cookies. She set them on the table, the office table, and poured a cup of tea for Eusebia. Tina picked up a napkin and offered it to Eusebia along with the teacups. That will be all, Tina. Thank you, said Adele. Adele waited until Tina left the room before she started interviewing her aunt. Would you like to begin? Adele asked as she picked up her pad and pen. Yes, Eusebia responded after taking a sip of tea. She carefully set the cup and saucer down on the table. Adele turned on the tape recorder and aimed the microphone toward Eusebia, who leaned over the microphone and asked, Is this okay? It's all right, Auntie. You do not have to lean over. The microphone is pretty powerful. It will be able to record your voice without any problems, Adele said as she adjusted the microphone stand. Eusebia smiled reluctantly and straightened herself on her seat. She took a breath and began. My name is Eusebia. I am a Filipina and was a comfort woman during the Japanese occupation in the 1940s. I was at home having just given birth a few days earlier to my son Arnell. And when the Japanese soldiers stormed my place, they kicked the doors, and one of my brothers, together with my husband, rushed to stop them from entering. In the meantime, my other brother tried to find a place for my sisters and me to hide, Eusebia started. She took another sip of her tea before she continued. From where I was hiding, I saw them push my brother and husband to the floor. They were shouting and asking where the women were hiding. The soldiers found out and found one of my sisters. They dragged her out from under the bed by her feet. She was kicking and screaming. My brother stood up, but one of the soldiers hit him on the head with the butt of his rifle. Eusebia began wringing her hands as she continued nervously. My baby started to cry, and I tried so hard to hush him, but he only cried louder. One of the soldiers heard him cry and followed the sound until he found us. He pulled me out by my hair. I tried to resist, but I couldn't do anything because I was holding on to my baby. Eusebia stopped for a moment. Adele reached for the recorder, but Eusebia held up her hand to stop her. She took a deep breath and continued. They dragged all of us out of the house and made us line up along the wall. One soldier took my son from me. He unwrapped his blanket and found out he was a boy. And then he threw my baby up in the air, and then he sliced him with his sword as my baby fell back down. Tears began to fall down Eusebia's face as she recounted the horrors of witnessing her own child's murder. Adele handed her a box of tissues. Eusebia took a bunch of it off and wiped the tears off her face. I went to pick up my baby, and I got hit on the back with a rifle. It caused me to fall face down on the ground. My husband ran toward me to help, but the soldier used the same sword that killed my baby to cut my husband's head off. I saw his head fly off his body and land near me. And all I could do was scream. Eusebia was unable to control herself. Tears were now flowing like a deluge as the memories of her painful past came flushing back, like she was experiencing the nightmare all over again. She was utterly inconsolable and broken. Adele felt Eusebia's pain. She reached over to hold her hand. With her free hand, she poured a glass of water and gave it to her aunt. Eusebia took a sip and then sat quietly, trying to regain some sense of composure. She reached for more tissues from the box and blew her nose, that was now also filled with tears. Maybe we should stop and continue some other time, Adele suggested, trying to comfort her. No, let's continue, Eusebia replied as she sat up and took a breath. I must have blacked out right after because I found myself on a cariton with other women. Eusebia continued to tell her story. We were carted off to a red house. That was where we were housed and systematically raped day in and day out. We were beaten both in body and in spirit. There was nothing we could do. Eusebia paused, and she didn't notice that her mind went somewhere else. In her thoughts, she heard the echoes of the past, the crying, the screaming of little girls, the sparks she saw when the soldiers hit her face with their fists, the salty taste of tears and blood in her mouth as she tried desperately to breathe while her nostrils were filled of a mixture of mucus and blood and tears. The endless pawing and groping all over her body, the bites she suffered that tore off her flesh. She had to close her eyes and go somewhere else to forget, to not hear, to not feel. Just go numb, like jumping into an icy pool, to become unfeeling, where she could sink into an abyss of nothingness.
It's really powerful, Liza. And to know that just from some of the stories that was told at the kitchen table and then actually transferring that into a book is amazing. So it's incredible that this book, again, I recommend people to read the book, buy the book. Liza will have to make sure we send that information for those who are interested after listening to this podcast. But I also wanted to share what hit me passionately about this book, kind of the crust of the matter, so to speak. And it's on page 129 to 131. But when it says, may I ask why the interests of comfort women and were you placed into the camps in the U.S. And I was told that when the war broke out, U.S. citizens with Japanese ancestry were gathered and bused out to the camps. And then Kenji says, no, as a matter of fact, I was not there at the time. But then she says, I'm just curious to see why you're interested. And so this is where I see that you're very passionate about the matter, just like you, Liza. And I would truly like to help you in this endeavor. They took a sip of tea, and then as you know, there are many victims, and they're aging, and they would like to die with their dignity restored. That's the key. They're victims, and as they're aging, wouldn't it be nice to know that as they die with dignity, that we need to advocate for them and to ensure that this will never happen again. And then Kenji says, and you believe that an apology will give it to them? And I believe having an apology is restoring that dignity. And that's what was so important to me. Then it goes into rape is part of war. That is why there was a common phrase called rape and plunder. What makes the situation of the Filipino comfort women any different? Kenji asked candidly. And these are great questions that somebody would ask also as they read your book. Yes, there is such a term as rape and plunder. However, for the Filipinas, Koreans, and Chinese, it is vastly different. This was a systematic and sustained operation. You can liken to this how the Germans committed the genocide of the Jewish people. The Imperial Japanese Army kidnapped, imprisoned, and abused these women to serve as their military men. The women were like parts on a production line, sex slaves to serve as all Japanese military men. Adele countered, so this is not rape and plunder at random, but extremely far from it. It was built to scale, and red houses were established for this sole purpose. They were farming out these women. That's the key. Kenji nodded and then argued. In our culture, there are geishas and orans. There is no shame about what they do. In fact, to this day, they still exist. Adele's jaw dropped when she heard what Kenji said, and there lies in the problem. Women are not objects for men to use. We are not performing monkeys, and the comfort women are not geishas or orans, nor they are treated like them. They were raped, beaten, sodomized, and even killed. But the main point there is that there was never any consent. It is never okay to put your hand on any individual and force your will on them. Kenji paused to consider what he was going to say next. Plus, this is the 20th century. Women should be treated as equals. We deserve respect. Adele said, taking advantage of Kenji's silence. You mentioned that you want to give them back their dignity, but how? Kenji asked. And this is the key, page 131. By uniting all the comfort women and making a statement. In fact, all women, even those who are not, should come together to support each other. This is our fight, Adele argued. We need to be treated as equals. The comfort women have suffered worse than dogs. Any woman should not have to go through rape or any kind of abuse. We are not mere objects. We are someone's mother, daughter, sister, wife. We deserve to be heard and say our piece. And that's what I think this book is all about. No more silence, saying our piece, allowing women to have a voice for the voiceless. No more silence. I love it. And I love this because your book was a story of hope, redemption, and strength. And I have this and I use it as a bookmark for my other books, but it actually is a constant reminder that we need to be a voice to provide a story for hope. And for those that are listening on this podcast, and if you have a story to tell, all of us have a story to tell. It's whether we continue to be silent about something that really happened. What a release, what a relief, what a way to encourage others to share their story. And I'm hoping that the book opens that door.
That's exactly what happened at the library.
Exactly.
Remember?
Yes.
That's exactly what happened because I read it, we were talking about this. And then one senior came up and said, may I say something? And it's I mean, it wasn't planned, right? It was totally unplanned. And I never met this woman till that day, that
Right.
moment, and, you know, and then she comes up to the podium and she goes, everything that she wrote is true. And it's like we were all dumbfounded. She said she was about 7 years old when the Japanese sprayed Manila with bullets. And she was fortunate to have survived that just by her mother pushing her off the steps when that happened. And then she said that her mother was some sort of spy, a guerrilla spy, while her father was a reporter, and he was one of the 3 reporters that was on the Japanese ship when they did the not the apology, but the surrender. And she came up and she felt safe enough to open up and talk about all this, how she survived, how she had to walk for miles from Manila to her with her grandmother, and that how her mother was taken. And to this day, she has no clue whatever happened to her mother, whether she survived or she didn't survive, or where she is, nothing. So again, my real hope for this book is that we start the conversation. And I'm hoping that by this book, it makes other women feel comfortable. You don't have to be a comfort woman to talk about this. You know, especially now with what's happening. I really want women to find their voice and be secure in knowing that they can speak their truth, because, you know, it's bad. Okay, so this happens to them, right? They get raped or assaulted, and then when they come out to say, to point the finger, or not even just point, but to say their story, they are victimized again. They're being called liars. I mean, come on, you're victimizing the person over and over and over again. And you know, a woman should be able to come out and speak their truth. What when it happens to a man? What, you know? I mean, seriously, when it happens to a woman, she's done. She's finished. She's impure. She's untouchable. For a man to have multiple partners, that's a different story.
Yes.
He gets like, yay, you got to do all that. Like, heck no, that's not right.
Right.
That's not right. Whether a woman chooses to have a multiple partner or just one, it's her choice. You know, and the main word here is consent.
Yes. And I think that a lot of women who have heard others reveal or unveil their story, or no longer want to be silenced, get re-victimized because they have to retell the story, and then their story is not believed. And so again, being re-victimized. And so folks say, why should I do that? Why should I be in that process? And so that's what's so incredible. But I believe that it's a new day. And so hopefully we become more collaborative and more engaging and more embracing that these stories need to be told. And that's what we
I
hope
know.
that we are able
So
to.
in the early chapters of Imelda's Secret, the name of the title of this book, Imelda's Secret, there's also a discussion about, so this happened 40 years ago. Why the heck are we still talking about it?
Right.
Like, because it happened. You can't just sweep it under the rug and forget about it. That's because secrets breed shame. And then it hurts the psyche. And then before you know it, it can be very debilitating. And then you have the institutional trauma going down one generation after the other. That should stop. So whether it happened to someone today or it happened to someone 50 years ago, it needs to be acknowledged. It has to be acknowledged.
Liza, one of the things that is so key is that as we hope that Uncut also becomes educational and informational. You're in California, I'm in Virginia. One of the things that I was strongly trying to encourage was for you to also get information through what I call some of our resource partners, which is Shared Hope International. Shared Hope International, if you check their site out, they have report cards. And I don't know if you had the chance. Did you check out your report card in California?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm serious because I think I'll sign up for the ambassadorship. So I really
Yes,
want to be
please
part of it.
do. Please do.
That's great.
Unfortunately, I'm in Virginia, and our report card currently stands as an F. And if anybody reviews Shared Hope International, it's a great resource to kind of give you a backbone, foundational information about human trafficking in the United States. Because when people say, oh, it happens everywhere else, it doesn't happen here. It happens in our own very backyard. And that's the key I want to share here, is that it's not everywhere else and not here. It's everywhere. And so what we need to do is how do you share this information, and how do we get information out to other folks? But review the report card. We have an F. California has a C. So yes, California is better than Virginia at this point. But what the report card does, it allows us to showcase across the nation, just bare bones, what are some of the things that are to help our citizens be safe and secure. So they have 6 components, and I won't go over that right now, but at any rate, just to be able to share information, doesn't matter where you are in the United States, check out Shared Hope International's report card, see where your state stands. And what is great about this is actually you can forward that information to your state legislators. Yesterday was legislation day at the Hill here in Virginia. And so there were certain bills that we were trying to fight for to, again, engage folks in our communities and actually heighten our report card standing in the state of Virginia. So hopefully when we talk next, hopefully our ratings would have increased and gone to a different level. It takes time, but at least we can empower people, educate people, and hopefully embrace this fight together. And then the other thing I want to make sure we were able to do, if there was a one takeaway that we're all able to do, is to be able to say that we have basic education. And what I've asked all our board members, our ambassadors, and people that would say, what can I do? I say one thing, if you can do this one thing for yourself, is to actually look on iamonwatch.org and say that you've done that certification. Takes less than 1 hour, just 1 hour of your time, and actually do the I Am on Watch. As you register a name, and at the end of the hour, you get the certificate. And then you just post that certificate on Facebook or on your favorite social media campaign and actually platform, and showcase that you are on watch. So when you can showcase your certificate and say, I am on watch, are you? There's one thing that I can ask you to do from this podcast, is to do that one certification. Liza, did you do it?
Oh, yes, I did. And already it's like, as I was going through the certification process, you can't think about this as something happening to your neighbor or some unknown person. It's not a third party thing.
Right.
Because human trafficking can start so subtle. It is such a subtle process that if you are not on watch, your own kin is at risk. Your own family is at risk. And this is what I need to stress out. It's your own family. It's in your own backyard. You need to do something. You need to be vigilant. I feel bad that the innocence of a child, you can't hope for them to grow up not having to know the dirty word, to know sex as a dirty word. You get, it can't be all sunshines and rainbow for them. But if the parent or the guardian is vigilant enough, we can save them and have them keep this sunshine and rainbow life. I mean, this innocence. Because I really, as much as possible, I really want to preserve their innocence. But then again, I want them to be safe. having to talk to them about stranger danger or things like that. But it's so subtle. It could be just playing a video game. Those video
Correct.
games that are out there, like, and that's why the first time when I saw it, it's like, oh my God, the first thing I wanted to do is reach for the phone and call my daughter, and my son-in-law says, hey, you better make sure that my 8-year-old grandson is playing his game safe and that no herb is out there trying to poach him, because
Correct.
I love my grandson. And so, it's like you have to think about it in terms of your own, because if you own it, again, it's not just somebody else's son, somebody else's daughter. It's our community, and it's up to us to keep it safe. And I Am on Watch is very good. It seems like it's difficult. You might think it's difficult, but it's not. If you could just keep your eye open, like that one person where it was mother and daughter, it was through a cell phone. So it just eyes wide open
Right.
for everyone.
I always say is see something, say something, do something. Because if you're just more cognizant of your community or cognizant of your surroundings, that in itself is half the problem. Just to be able to see where you're going. I leave a Barnes and Noble or Kohl's or a TJ Maxx, and I see how women and children or parent and child leave a store and how they're cognizant of their surroundings. Do they have their headphones on? Are they on the phone? Are they looking at the traffic truly? How are they going towards their car? And you'll see half these parents, half the children aren't watching where they're going. And that's what somebody's looking out for, someone who's not paying attention. So being more cognizant, because it can protect you and it can also protect the one that you love. Just checking out your surroundings. And you'll learn a lot about that on I Am on Watch. Today's Friday the 13th. I wanted to start this launch our podcast because I want to say it's no longer a bad luck omen, and being abused or trafficked is no longer a bad secret to keep a secret. It's time to give a voice to the voiceless. It's a time for anyone and everyone to know that they have a safe place. And hopefully you too can reveal your secret. Hope that you can use this podcast as an opportunity to be your voice for somebody that needs you. Again, I'm Naomi Stars, president, founder of EnJewel. And thank you, Liza Gino, for being with us on our first podcast, Uncut. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
That's a cut.
Yay. That was good.